Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another review of The Flash Season 7. And as you may know, I wasn't the biggest fan of last week's episode, but this I did really enjoy. I was really getting into it, and then there was a part where like things turned around, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." And then all of a sudden, wait, what things were going good? Why'd you just do that? So again, I do still have problems with it, but for the most part, I did like the episode, and we're going to go ahead and break it down here. So, just a quick spoiler warning if you haven't seen the episode yet, because, spoilers. So, anyway, let's get into this. So, we start off the episode literally right after last week's episode ended off, where Nora just murdered Alexa, and she's trying to justify her reasons to Team Flash, like, they're just going to go kill more people, and we gotta survive and all this stuff, and really not the greatest reasons. Basically, she's kind of evil now. So Barry does not at all agree. But after this, they need to come up with a plan, because Nora, she just runs off, and she doesn't really appear in the episode again until the end with the kind of post-credit scene type thing. But she's basically the whole episode is trying to figure out what to do now, because Nora is still out there. She just murdered someone and is planning on doing it to the other forces. So now Barry has to come up with a new plan on how to stop the forces and how to stop Nora. And the plan that he ends up coming up with is he wants to go back in time and uncreate the forces. So that night when the forces were originally created, he wants to go back there and make it so that they were never created and absorb the particles and just make them disappear. So, alright, seems like a pretty solid plan here, but Iris completely disagrees. She's like, oh, we should just talk to Nora. And man, Iris, you got the two main sides in this episode of like, alright, so they can either go back in time and do something cool, or they just talk the villain out of it. And really, that's my complaint with this season of The Flash so far, is that literally every villain has just been talked down, and they just give them an emotional speech, and it's like, oh, okay, we'll be friends now. It's the power of love. But I don't want that. So I was actually on Barry's side in this episode, which was pretty cool to see. But he's going to need some help here. So he goes to visit Timeless Wells, because apparently Timeless Wells will be able to help him do this, travel back in time and uncreate the forces without creating another flashpoint and basically messing up the timeline, which is Barry's specialty. So he needed a little help here. So it was nice to see Tom Cavanagh back in this episode, possibly for the last time. We'll talk about that more later, though. But when working on this tachyon thing to collect the particles when they go back in time, all of a sudden Dion shows up, and this is bad news, because he freezes time, and Barry is the only one that's talking to him, and Barry explains his plan. And Dion does not accept his offer, because he wants to keep his powers, because at this point his powers are who he is. So he actually takes the harness and like ages it 1,000 years or something like that. So it's not very useful right now. But what we don't know is that Chester actually took this little piece of it before Dion showed up and hid it so that he didn't affect that. So Chester, he being the MVP here, and he's going to save the day, and now he's going to be able to rebuild this thing pretty easily. But then after this scene is where we get some more disagreement, because now Cisco disagrees with Barry as well, and Chester kind of does as well. And Wells is kind of just like, all right, I'll agree with if it's what you really want to do, Barry, I'll agree with you. So at this point, pretty much everybody is disagreeing with Barry and his plan. So he goes to talk to Joe and get some advice, some good old Joe advice. And it was a good scene. I always love those classic Joe Barry talks. So it was nice to see another one here in this episode. But after this, we get to see what Iris and her crew has been up to in this episode, or the Central City citizens, because they are out looking for Nora. They're taking the other approach where they're going to just go find Nora, and they are just going to try to talk to her and just talk it out, see how things are going there. But basically, it doesn't go very well, because when they do end up going to look for Nora, they run into Psych instead, which was pretty awesome. Psych is honestly my favorite of the forces because he seems to be really the only one that's actually evil. I mean, Nora is kind of evil, but I have a feeling she's probably going to be redeemed by the end of this. So it was awesome to see Psych again. I love this villain. And, you know, Iris tries that thing. She tries talking him down like, oh, I feel like I'm your parent and all this stuff, and you know, we can help you. And I love how Psych is just like, nah, like I'm not gonna accept that offer. I love who I am totally in control. And then he puts her through this nightmare, and it was a really awesome scene. Again, I love this villain, and I love how it basically shows how this talking it out doesn't always work. Like, sure, it's gonna work sometimes, and that is a big thing that Barry stands for, is hope and love, and because he was the paragon of love, but it's not always going to work to just talk it out with the villain. Things got to get a little dirty first. So I did really enjoy this scene with Psych. But then things start to go wrong for Psych because this is when Barry goes back in time with Timeless Wells to try and fix everything. So they go back to the night the forces were created. And Barry, he collects these force particles. He and Wells, they go up on the roof, and I think this is actually like the first time we've seen like the roof of Star Labs, which honestly looked pretty cool. And when you just got like this giant beam of energy just coming up through the sky, it's nice golden yellow and stuff. So he walks into the middle of it, collects all these particles, some cool little purple, green, blue sprinkles going on there. So, honestly, the visual effects in the scene were pretty cool. But then at the same time, things were getting really confusing. Because then after he collected these particles, we saw back in present day that the forces were kind of dying. I guess to just exist or erase that version of them. And then, so like, Psych was like on the ground in pain. And Dion and Alexa, even though she was already dead. So that's what was going on there. But then Barry just released them back. So he kind of just like took the tachyon collector, just smashed it on the ground and released the particles back, which was kind of like, bro, what you doing? I mean, I agreed with Barry in this episode because I don't get why everybody was disagreeing with him, because it sounds like a good plan. It's not like it's going to hurt the forces or anything. It just takes away their power. This would save Alexa from being killed. This would keep Psych from being a bad guy. This would keep Dion from having to deal with all of this pain in his life. I don't get why this was such a bad plan. But then after it starts working, he just throws it all away. It just didn't really make sense, especially after he had already completed it. So then it's like, oh, great. Well, then this whole episode was basically a waste then. So, all right. I guess that's what happened. But anyway, we do get to flash back to present day here, where we get our ending to the episode. And Barry and Iris apparently have this connection to the forces, and as Iris was saying earlier, they are kind of like the parents to the forces because they are the ones that kind of created them. So they basically realized that, like, oh, we have this energy and this connection in our bodies, so we can bring Alexa back to life. So then that's what they do. They just walk up to Alexa, do their little sparkly hand thingy, and boom, she's alive again, which is pretty cool because I was kind of sad last episode. It's like, whoa, you cast this actress and brought her in for like one episode and then she's dead. But now she's back, so that's cool. Hopefully the next time we do see her as Fwirza, the CGI is much improved because it wasn't the greatest last time. So that was cool to see that Alexa is now finally back, so I did like seeing that. But then we get into the sad part, because Timeless Wells, he says his goodbye to Cisco, and again, this could be possibly the last time we see Wells in this season, and the last time we see him as a series regular, because there was the announcement last week that Tom Cavanagh was leaving the series as a series regular at the end of season 7. So this could be possibly our last goodbye with Wells, which is kind of sad. But then we get another goodbye with Cisco, because after this is when he talks to Kamilla, and they both come to the conclusion that they need to leave Central City. And we saw this hinted at a little bit at the beginning of the episode when Kamilla was talking about she had to go to, like, I think it was San Francisco for some sort of, I don't know, some sort of photography gallery walk type thing, something like that. And basically Cisco's going to go with her, I guess, because also last week it was announced that Carlos Valdes was leaving the show as well. So this is the exit here, and it may be a little weird that he's already leaving the show because this was one of the big cliffhangers, so it's going to be addressed in next episode. He could even be leaving next episode, but I have a feeling it's going to be kind of like DC's Legends of Tomorrow season 3, because after Martin Stein died, Jax, he left the team about halfway through the season and then came back in the finale, because in the report it was confirmed that Cisco would be appearing in the season 7 finale. So sounds like he's maybe going to be leaving the show in the next couple episodes here, and then he will return for a final goodbye in the season 7 finale. So there's that. Really sad to see him go. But then we do get this big cliffhanger with Nora, and she approaches Dion with this whole reverse flash hand vibrating thing. I was like, whoa, that's pretty crazy, but I'm not sure if he's going to die or what, but things not looking good. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. What did you think about this episode of The Flash Season 7? So, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep up to date on